Hello everybody, welcome to our second live stream. Today we're going to talk about the Mosasaur and Tylosaurus figures that we previously reviewed. If you have not seen those videos, check out the links below. But we are going to answer the questions that were submitted by the viewers. If you would like to join these live streams in the future, check out the notes below. So George, we got a lot of questions today on the Mosasaur and the Tylosaurus. Let's get started. One of the questions that was submitted is, what is the evolutionary relationship between the Mosasaur and the Tylosaur?
Ooh, that's a great question. So Tylosaurus is just one of the largest mosasaurs. They are actually one of the last of the lineage of mosasaurs. So they are the end result of millions of years of evolution, ever since the Jurassic, where they first evolved, all the way to the Cretaceous. So we're looking at basically almost 100 million years of evolution. The Tylosaurus is the most adept, the most fearsome, and the most ferocious, I would say, of the mosasaurs to date.
Another question that was submitted was related to the fossil record. Can you discuss the fossil record of both species, and are there noticeable differences in the location and circumstances of their discoveries?
The first mosasaur fossils were found in the 1800s, and they were interpreted as kind of like beaching themselves on rocks. So that is like the stereotypical mosasaur that we see in like history. That one and Tylosaurus was discovered a bit more recently in the late 1800s, early 1900s, so we get a better picture of just what they look like. It's honestly really hard to say, like, situationally how different they were. We go from a group of scattered bones for the Mosasaurus to beautifully organized, framed fossils of Tylosaurus using the Sternberg method, which is a paleontologist that studied under Cope and Marsh, which then became his own paleontologist, opened his own museum, and now he has beautifully framed mosasaur skeletons and other kinds of marine creatures in his museum in Kansas.
Did they live in the same geographic areas, or were they found in different areas?
They were found in different areas, but back then, all the oceans were more interconnected than they are now. North and South America weren't connected, so aquatic beings could go through that area. Even the United States was split in half by the Western Interior Seaway, so there was plenty of space for them to live, but they didn't live in the same place.
Was there any evidence as to whether they were pack animals or solitary creatures?
Ooh, that's a great question. There isn't any, but when it comes to marine reptiles, they tend to congregate, whether they're turtles or iguanas, for like breeding events. So if they were reproducing, then that'd probably be the biggest assemblage or groups of mosasaurs that we'd probably see. And that's just going off trends of marine reptiles. There are feeding frenzies, which their modern day relatives, monitor lizards and Komodo dragons, participate in. So that's another instance of when they would kind of eat together, but necessarily coordinating hunting in like a pack. Pack requires coordination, but taking down a larger animal or a bunch of animals as a group is more of an opportunistic way of hunting, which they might have participated in. I mean, Komodo dragons definitely do this when they're hunting things like deer, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
In our previous videos, we discussed the bifurcated tails. They both had similar bifurcation in their tails. Would one of them have been a better swimmer than the other?
See, that's a question I wish I knew the answer to, mostly because cartilage doesn't preserve very well, and that top part of the bifurcated tail would be made completely out of cartilage. So there would be differences in swimming styles based on the shape. If you look at modern day sharks, which also have cartilage tail fins, the thresher shark is a shark that has a really long lower bifurcation and a really small top bifurcation, which is similar to mosasaurs that we see. And in the ones that do have the tails preserved, those are fast, impulsive swimmers. The ones that would have had a larger dorsal kind of tail flipper, those would have been a bit more for endurance swimming, long-term swimming, instead of bursts of speed. So that's kind of how I would interpret that. So the mosasaurs with the longer bottom fin would be faster than the ones with the top longer fin. But I don't have the answer to that because we don't have that much evidence on their tails.
How did changes in the environment lead to their extinction?
That's a great question. When the dinosaurs went extinct, as we all know, giant space rock slammed into the earth, caused a lot of earthquakes, volcanoes erupted. The end result of this affected more creatures on the land, but also in the sea. So the volcanic eruptions put sulfur into the air, which mixed with the rain and made sulfuric acid rain. So that was really bad for marine creatures with shells like ammonites and belemnites. So some of those were the main food source for mosasaurs. Mosasaurs also benefited from not breathing the water that was now toxic to other animals, but their skin and internal organs also suffered a lot from whatever food they would eat that was, unfortunately, not in the best shape or condition. So it was a very slow, long, drawn-out death for the mosasaurs, because for the creatures that breathe in through their gills, well, it was a quicker death. But for air-breathing animal like Mosasaurus, they would come up to the surface would be hot because all of these hot fires and gases and volcanic eruptions and debris from the meteorite will be there, and then they have to go back in the water where it was very acidic. All their food is eroding or disintegrating away, so their food sources eventually disappeared and their environment completely changed. So that is something that they did not survive and could not adapt to. So that's why we don't have any mosasaurs anymore.
It sounds like they would have been one of the last to die, though.
Probably.
And is that a blessing or a curse?
I would say that's a curse. That is definitely a curse. Oh, I wish I was, if I had to be a dinosaur, I wish I was one of the ones that was hit directly by the meteor. You did not want to be around that time.
And then one last question, George. Since we reviewed the Mosasaurs and the Tylosaurus separately, we never made a decision as to which of the two PNSO models would you pick. Would you pick Ron, the Mosasaur, or Evan, the Tylosaur, if you could only afford one of those two models?
I would probably pick Ron the Tylosaur.
Well, it's Ron the Mosasaur or Evan the Tylosaur.
Oh no, Evan, no.
They're actually over there if you want to look on the...
I need a visual reference.
They're right... That's the one. The other one was right behind you.
So this is the Mosasaurus, correct?
That is Ron the Mosasaurus.
Ron the Mosasaurus. And then this is
Evan the Tylosaurus.
Evan the Tylosaurus. I can remember dinosaur names, but I can't remember people names. I'm sorry. What was your name again?
Exactly. Hefe.
So between these two, I'd have to pick the Tylosaurus. Mostly because I do like the tail on this one. The tail on this one is nice, but this kind of gives it a more lifelike shape and structure. This one is kind of more of a... I don't know. This is a tough choice you've made me do. But as always, I have to make the tough choices.
Exactly.
I also like how you can see how smooth this one is. So you can tell that there are scales there. And this one, there are also scales, but I like how smooth the scales are on this one. This one looks very battle damaged and wrinkly, but I like the smoothness. So as a personal preference, that's why I would pick this guy, but also because of the skulls. The skull on this one seems a lot more akin to what they would be more accurately. I think we went over this in the Mosasaur episode, which if you haven't watched, you should go see. This guy has a very shrink-wrapped top skull, very thin. Looks like a very thinly placed beak on a bird. Well, this guy, well, it is also thin, but it's more robust than this one. That one's like wafer thin. This is like stick thin.
Well, that's a great choice because Evan the Tylosaur is actually 30% cheaper than Ron, so you've saved some money through that pick also.
What?
So as a reminder, this was our second live stream. If you would like to join these in the future, check out the instructions below, and we look forward to you joining us in the future live streams. Thanks for watching.